What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'll break down what's going on with the overall market thus far and what you should be watching for as time progresses. And also what's happening with some other pieces of news affecting the markets. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market. I just want to mention that so far, NIO is still looking relatively weak. We've been on this very strong downtrend, but we're approaching some critical support around that $7 area. Now, there's a very good chance that with this bullish divergence, we could see NIO get very close to 7 and then bounce just a little bit temporarily before we continue from there. But this is also going to depend on other factors. So I want to first talk about those, what the news is saying about this company. And then I'm going to talk more about NIO and the other companies out there. So the first thing I just want to remind you guys about is that for the overall market, we have big earnings again coming out for tomorrow in the morning. We have First Bank, we have other banks out there, PNC, and don't forget about Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, all announcing their earnings for Tuesday before the market opens. And then for Wednesday, we have Charles Schwab, we have Discover, and a few others. For Thursday, we have a couple more, but everything else will be very minor from there. But Tuesday is going to be the day we have big banks coming out, even more of them in the morning. So we'll see what this causes for the market specifically. But there's a very good chance that the earnings should be decent, as so far the bank earnings have been very mixed and quite decent overall. So hopefully we see a very similar reaction. Now, when it comes to more data affecting the markets, everything is very, very minor. We have some manufacturing data an hour before the market opens. Very, very minor data. Then we have Waller from the Fed giving a speech. Then we have the bill auctions coming out at 11:30 a.m. Besides that, all the data is going to be very, very minor. Nothing too serious. As far as NIO goes, there's some news that came out. We're seeing some news and a nice shout out for the NIO EL6 right over here. You can see there's a lot of pictures of it as it was driving around Norway, looking very, very strong and very durable within the weather. So very, very awesome stuff. The EL6 is a car, an SUV, that's just full of potential. And I think it's great to see NIO once again giving lots of exposure, lots of attention to their vehicles in Norway and other European countries. So good for them. Let's hope that this continues to help them grow as time goes on. There's also some news that came out. NIO to hike cost of battery upgrades on the daily basis for February 1st through the 17th. That's going to be very important. This is going to be a big, big, big cost increase by about 76% between February 1st and February 17th, as it expects demand for upgrades to surge during the Chinese New Year travel push. That's why they're pushing up the cost right now, just temporarily during this time. Now, with that happening, this is going to be a big boost for them because demand is going up like crazy over there. We're approaching the big holiday, Chinese New Year, which is going to be very festive, very, very fun. And we'll see how things go from there. On top of this, there's also some constraints coming out when it comes to their resources, which is part of why they have to increase their prices. Now, could this hurt them for the short term? It is also a possibility this could work against them because these are some big price hikes in a very short period of time. But if that isn't really enough to offset the demand that comes out during the time, then they're going to be completely fine. So just keeping that in mind, I'm pretty sure they'll be fine because of how big the Lunar New Year tends to be, especially in February. So we'll see how it goes. But otherwise, I consider this good news for NIO. As long as demand remains up there, the price increases should not affect them too negatively, and this should be fine for them for a temporary period of time. This is just going to be for a temporary period of time for Lunar New Year, so wish the best for NIO. Let's hope this goes well for them. Now, when it comes to NIO, we have about 49 million in volume. It's actually a little bit below average, so it's dropping on lower volume. If the volume keeps dropping as time goes on, and it approaches that $7 area, that means that it's not going to be selling off as aggressively. This could actually be helpful for them. Hopefully, it maintains that low volume. The short volume relative to prices going up, we had about 57% short volume, and that's after this news came out from Bank of America, basically announced that they're downgrading NIO from a buy to a neutral rating. The price-risk ratio is down because NIO is relatively weak. But don't forget, Tuesdays tend to be strong days. 55% of the time, NIO is green. It's a little bit stronger for the week Tuesdays, and Wednesdays tend to be. January tends to be a strong month but this tends to be offsets this data because the NIO days used to be in January, and now they kind of came early in December. So this is a little bit off, but hopefully January does improve a bit for NIO over time. We're actually off to a very weak start so far for the year. But that's pretty much it when it comes to data. Watch for high volatility around noon, then at 2 p.m. and also during the last hour of the day, NIO tends to be very green during those times. So we'll see how it goes. But what am I seeing on the share price right now? But basically, NIO has the 4-hour 20 EMA as resistance. So that's going to kind of like hold it back. When you zoom out and look at the daily time frame, it's still looking very weak. The daily also looks weak. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing actually gets very close to $7. And we have to watch and see how it reacts to that. On the weekly time frame, we have a bearish looking weekly candle. We're about to get a bearish cross on the PPO, so I could see it hit $7, guys. NIO still looks very weak to me, so watch and see how it reacts to 7. Can we hold 7? Do we see buyers defend, or does it end up losing $7 as support? So we'll be watching 7 because the thing is, NIO bounced off 7 3 times. We bounced off $7 3 times in the past, once here, once here, once here. So it's bounced many times off this $7 support. So we'll see if it could try to hold around that range. Do we hold around 7? But I believe it's going to be testing 7. If that fails us, we could be making our way down to 6.5. For now, I'm not going to worry about 6.5 yet. Let's watch 7. Let's see how NIO tries to hold that. But don't the weekly, the 4-hour, and the daily all look bearish. If you want to turn bullish, you want to see it try to get above 7.48 or the 4-hour 20 EMA, which is acting as resistance. This is where we rejected on Friday. So if we break above this, we could try pushing higher, but as of right now, it hasn't done that. To turn bullish, you need to break 7.5 basically. But right now, okay, we look bearish. I'm going to be honest with you. We look bearish right now. It looks like NIO could see $7. So just be very careful and see how it reacts to that. As far as SPY goes, it's very simple. I think that SPY has a very interesting trend right now. It does look like it's starting to curl here, but I think there could be a big reaction depending on the bank earnings tomorrow morning. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing was trying to not base, but top between 747, not 478, excuse me, guys, 478 to 480. We could see SPY touch that again before it starts to sell off a little bit more. But I think it's going to, it depends on how it tries to hold 475, which is the 4-hour 20 EMA. If we lose 475, we turn bearish. 473.5 is our next target. Then we have the 472s and 470. If we're bullish, we want to see it close above 478 to 480. My prediction is I think this is going to pop a little bit. We could see some more liquidity being grabbed up here at 478 or so. Sideways price action, but then I think later on a downtrend is going to come, and we're eventually going to be selling off back down to the 472s or so. We look a little bearish on the PPO on the 4-hour time frame, but just to be safe, let's see what happens with the bank earnings because this is going to affect SPY. Either way, I still anticipate a little pop and drop coming to SPY. It might grab liquidity at 478 to 480 initially, push a little bit, and then eventually start selling off towards 470. 3.5 and even these lower levels later on. That's what I'm predicting for it. For Tesla, we're in a critical state. Tesla's been very weak, but it's trying to base around 217. The reason why 217 is so important is because when you look at the weekly time frame, we turn off our EMAs and switch to the moving averages, you will see that right here. Let me fix this. Give me 1 second, guys. Let's go back on the charts. On the weekly time frame, we're going to be watching the 200 moving average. That's around this 217 area. If we hold this, there's a chance that Tesla could try to, kind of range trade between 224 and 217. If we fail to hold it, though, if we lose 217, I'm expecting a bigger drop coming. We could be approaching 200 flat. My gut tells me it's going to try to rebound a bit into the 220s, very low 220s, and come back down. The weekly looks really bearish. So there's going to be a risk of it losing the support. So look for a little pop, then a drop. And I think it's going to lose 217 and eventually make its way down to lower levels. Currently, it looks bearish right now. This, candlestick does look quite bearish. So just be a little bit careful. And I think that there could be more downside coming. If I'm going to be honest with you all, be very, very careful. As far as Apple goes, Apple is showing some life on the weekly. But it's also kind of stationary. It's been kind of stuck going back and forth for many, many weeks. But be a little bit careful with Apple because we have a potential head and shoulders developing right now on the 4-hour time frame. We have a left shoulder here, the head here, the right shoulder could be forming. And if Apple ends up losing support around 183.5, I think it's going to be sinking back down towards 180. So be very careful with this head and shoulders. To turn bullish, we want to see Apple break 188. So we'll watch for that very carefully. But there's a head and shoulders on Apple, so be careful. This could lead to some downsides. You want to be very careful as time goes on. On the triple Q, this also has a slanted head and shoulders like structure, but it's not really ready to play out yet. It is still possible that they could try to invalidate this and try to grab liquidity up here. They could try to push this thing up towards some of these higher levels. So they might try to push it towards you know, 412 to 413 before this thing rejects. But I think the QQQ is going to see a sell off back down to 405 eventually. So it might pop a little bit first, then come back down to 405 later. We could look for some liquidity being grabbed around 410 to 412 and then come back down later. That's what I'm kind of like starting to see. On Nvidia, you could argue that Nvidia has a consolidation phase that's developing. Nvidia could push a little higher though. It is still possible to try to grab more liquidity. I'm going to be watching it around 550. I think it could push a little higher towards 550 to 555, then reject. And I think that later on, Nvidia is going to make its way down towards the 20 EMA. So it's going to retrace back down towards 540 to 542 again later on. Look for a little pop and then a drop to 542 later on. That's what I'm seeing for Nvidia. This looks like a slanted topping structure, but we're not officially ready to fall yet. We have a wick down here, which is giving us a hint about what's going to come. Look for a push up, liquidity to be grabbed up here, and then a sell off later on, whether it starts tomorrow, maybe it starts later on for the week, back down to 542. Is it going to be that aggressive? It doesn't have to be that aggressive, but I do believe that there might be some downside coming. So you want to be very careful with how the market's looking. That's it for the main levels. I'm also going to be watching the VIX because the VIX is approaching the support. It's at support right now. We saw the support hold at 12.3. If it does drop a bit more, we have critical support at like 11.8 to 11.9. So we're still close to our support. But if the VIX tries to bounce here, if we try to break above 13, it could turn bullish again, try to push up higher. And we might be testing the 200 EMA if we break above 13. So if the VIX gets a bounce here, because we have a bullish looking potential reversal structure that could be developing technically, that could be because of the market topping. So not a guarantee yet. We have to wait and see if we can break the EMAs. But we're going to be very patient when we watch this. With that being said, guys, whoops, sorry about that, guys. As far as NIO goes, I think that NIO, in my opinion, it has some downside coming at 7, but we're going to be watching to see if it tries to base there, if it tries to bounce or not. So look for this thing to potentially pop and then drop back down. I think it might push for 7.4 and then come back down towards 7. And then we'll have to see if that holds or not. I think 7 is going to be tested for NIO, and we'll have to see if it bounces or not. But I'll be watching for that going into tomorrow. Look for a little pop and drop. And I think that 7 is where we're going to try to base. So we'll see if we hold that or not. If we lose it, we're going to turn even more bearish. So watch that very carefully. But that's it for this video. Hopefully this video was helpful, guys. Have a great day and peace out.